Now, a closer look.
A sleepy morning, we're out in the boondocks. Stories being told on the replay.
Look, up in the sky!
It's a bird!
No, it's a plane!
No, it's a drone!
Today's segment is titled, "The Drones Aren't Coming, They're Already Here." Drones are just another word for UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles, and the applications for these, especially the sUAVs, which refer to the small unmanned aerial vehicles, are manyfold. Some of these sUAVs use similar technology to that of helicopters, meaning that they have multiple arms with a motor positioned at the end of each, looking like a funky kind of flying spider. A few months ago, the CEO of Amazon.com, Jeff Bezos, launched a surprise announcement on the American television program known for uncovering investigative reports called 60 Minutes. On that program, Mr. Bezos invited the host, Charlie Rose, to see his secret research and development project for sUAVs. This he is calling Prime Air Delivery Service. Amazon's plan, according to Mr. Bezos, is to be able to deliver items up to 5 pounds, that's 2.3 kilograms in weight, within 30 minutes from the time ordered from the click of the computer mouse. Now, Mr. Bezos, who started and runs the world's largest online retailer, said these kinds of low-weight deliveries account for 86% of the items that Amazon currently sells. Prime Air would plan to use these multi-copter, funky flying machines to travel up to 16 kilometers from certain Amazon distribution or shipping centers. Mr. Bezos' hopes are that his Prime Air delivery can be achieved sometime in the foreseeable future, perhaps within the next 5 or so years. Now my question to you, the listener, is this. Does this sound like science fiction to you? Perhaps not.
Let's go and see the stars, the Milky Way, or even Mars, where it could just be ours.
The employing of drones or UAVs and sUAVs is real, and it's happening now. The current use of this technology ranges from military applications to public safety and rescue surveillance to professional cinematography filmmaking. On the phone, I have Professor Missy Cummings, who is in the first group of female fighter pilots in the U.S. Navy. She is a professor at both MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Duke University, with her academic focus on the relationship between humans, computers, and machines. Hello, Professor Missy Cummings, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Hello. Nice to have you on the program. Where are you now physically? Are you in Massachusetts or in North Carolina?
I'm physically in North Carolina.
You're the director of the MIT program, Humans in Automation Lab, acronym called HAL, at MIT. Okay. Is there a strong similarity between HAL and Stanley Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey?
Well, I named my lab HAL, first of all, just to see who is paying attention in the crowd. And I quickly found out that you have to be a certain age. You have to be kind of old to kind of get the inside joke of HAL. We did pick it because there is this future world where theoretically computers can outthink humans or outmaneuver humans. And so we're working to change that from maybe an ominous, nefarious idea to one where we're actually working together in a more friendly manner.
Since we're going back in time a bit, about 30 years ago, I'm sure you saw the blockbuster movie then called Top Gun. When you were in the Navy, were you a fighter pilot that was much like what was portrayed by the main character, Maverick Mitchell?
Well, when the movie came out, I was still in college. And in fact, I was in the year that I chose what I got to do in the Navy. And so I, like many of my counterparts, were heavily influenced by Top Gun. And so, we all raced to sign up to be fighter pilots after we saw that movie. And yes, that is eventually, so I went to flight school, I became a fighter pilot, and I've actually been to Top Gun.
Oh, interesting. Don't multi-million-dollar fighter jets have drone technology built into them?
All commercial aircraft, all military aircraft today have drone technology built into them. It's called fly-by-wire technology. It's basically where the computer does the flying and the human is basically coaching the computer to do the flying. And so that happened in the late 70s, 1970s. That technology started coming online. So yes, all military fighters could be drones, but all Airbus aircraft could also easily be turned into drones.
Okay, so you obviously had firsthand experience with drones. My question is, how did you make the leap from being a fighter pilot to an expert professor on drone technology?
Well, when I was in that first female group of fighter pilots, it was a tough 3 years. The guys did not want us there.
I'm sure.
The military, the U.S. military, was very vocal and visceral on trying to get women out. And so, I did it for 3 years, and I'm glad I did it, but it was a period of social upheaval. And at some point, I just decided that I could be more productive somewhere else, and that's when I went back to graduate school and got my Ph.D. I saw the forest for the trees. I saw that this advanced automation was starting to come online very quickly, and so I immediately started doing research in that area, a little bit ahead of most other people, which is how I got to be a world expert. Like many people do, I saw that coming before most people did.
You were able to, pardon the pun, see over the horizon.
I sure did.
So UAVs, which stand for unmanned aerial vehicles, and sUAVs, which stand for small unmanned armed vehicles, are already in society, no?
Well, I think sUAV stands for small unmanned aerial vehicle. There are no, that I'm aware of, there are no small unmanned armed ones.
Did I say that? That was a slip on my part.
It's okay, because it's actually a really common question that I get. Are these things capable of carrying weapons? And certainly in the United States, we do have some that do, although actually very few military drones have weapons. It's mostly the CIA, which we could argue about whether or not, and it is an argument in the United States going on right now, whether or not the CIA, which is a paramilitary force, should have the ability to have weaponized UAVs.
Okay, well then I'm glad I made that slip. The research that I found is the sUAVs are pretty much used for surveillance.
So the UAVs started in the military as medium altitude and high altitude, the bigger ones, the Predators, the Global Hawks. The sUAVs, the small ones, did not start coming online until, 10 to 15 years after the introduction of the bigger ones. And it's the small UAVs which have really made an amazing I would say, almost exponential rise in the UAV market. And in fact, for the longest time, the Germans had the corner on that market. There was a small group of Germans who came out of MIT who went back to Germany called Ascending Technologies, and for the longest time, they were the ones that everybody was going to for their technology, and then the technology just started to explode, and now you see worldwide representation in the small UAV market. Everyone has, it doesn't take much. A company in your garage, for example, that's what we say in the United States. There's a lot of that happening right now. And so I would say the small UAV market has eclipsed the large UAV market in terms of sheer numbers.
Aren't you working on some very interesting technology for sUAVs, having some sort of intelligence that they can't crash themselves or something?
Right. So that's one of the things that my lab is famous for, and what we got a patent for was developing basically crash-proof technology that really takes you out of the driver's seat and allows the vehicle to be flown very, very safely. It can still crash, for example, as can all aircraft if there's really extreme weather.
Okay.
But you can't do anything to the vehicle to put it in an out-of-control state. And what's more impressive is that the software can be mounted on any smartphone. And the software that we came up with, it could allow you to control an Airbus, for example, very, very easily. And because an Airbus, like I said before, it's fly-by-wire technology, and so it effectively could be a drone. Well, that was something that we did in the past, but I will tell you that because the technology has grown so quickly, for us that's kind of old news. The new news that we're working on in my lab is trying to figure out an air traffic control paradigm to support a high-density environment of small UAVs, kind of like what Amazon envisioned when they talked about their delivery service. Some people think it's science fiction, but in Australia it's a reality. There's a company called ZooCall who is going to be doing textbook delivery later this year. I think they have all the regulatory go-aheads in place. And so if we think that there's going to be a commercial market viable in the future, one of the questions is how do we make sure that they don't crash into each other, and how do we make sure they don't crash into manned aircraft, and how do we ensure safety of people on the ground? So I would say the air traffic control small UAV problem is the one I'm working the hardest right now.
Great. That's definitely foresightful. In closing, do you have any comments for our listeners that might be a little apprehensive over the word of drones or sUAVs?
Well, I think it's normal and definitely understandable for people to be reluctant when we see a new technology on the horizon. Change is not something most humans take well, but I also think that when you start to look at the safety records and the abilities for drones to do lots of missions that humans either do not do well or do very dangerously, crop dusting is a good example, that you start to realize that it's not necessarily about replacing jobs or putting more spy cameras in the sky. It's about putting a capability that will improve upon an area which we are actually not that good at and will make our lives both better and safer. And if you look far, far into the future, in the United States, about 50 years ago, we had this saying, an airplane in every driveway. Everybody thought they were going to have a roadable airplane, something that you could drive and fly. Well, because of drone technology, there's been a big resurgence in that idea, and it is very possible that one day we will have planes in our driveways that we can also drive. But the only way that's going to happen is if we turn those into drones, both on the road and in the air, mostly because we're terrible drivers. Even the Germans are bad drivers.
But they make fast cars.
They do make fast cars, and now we'll just have really fast drones.
I just read that Paramount is seriously working on putting together Top Gun 2. And in that movie, Tom Cruise, I guess, will be back in the hot seat. And he's supposedly going to show that drone technology has not made fighter pilots obsolete, that they're here to stay. What do you think on that? Do you think that's just another Hollywood movie?
Well, it's funny. I saw that announcement, too, and I actually was told those words by a studio about 4 years ago. So that idea has been around a long time. So, we'll see if they can actually make it come to fruition. And I think it's a nice idea. I think it's a very humanistic approach that we want to believe that we're still relevant, as did most elevator operators at one point in time. I think fighter pilots will always be needed but I think their job is going to change. It will change to be one of a person who is a more strategic thinker, somebody who's actually calling the shots, the quarterback, for example, or, the head of a soccer team, where you've got somebody who's making the decisions about the plays that are going to happen and then going to order the vehicles to do their bidding. The fact of the matter is, drones can pull a lot more G's against the force of gravity than humans can. Drones don't need to sleep. Drones don't need to eat. Drones don't drink and then fly. So there are a lot of human limitations that will make drones better fighter pilots at the tip of the spear, but we will never replace the need for humans to develop strategies and tactics to execute our will. So in a way, we will always need fighter pilots. They just won't need to be sitting in the aircraft.
Professor Missy Cummings, I salute you. Thank you so much for being in our program.
Thank you so much for having me.
On the phone, I have Chris Barter. He's the program manager for the small UAVs at Datron World Communications. They're located in Vista, California, and they have been providing communication equipment for over 40 years to the military and public safety sector, specifically radio communication equipment. Chris, are you there?
Yes, sir. Guten Abend.
Guten Abend. But I think where you are, it's Guten Morgen.
Yes, sir. It actually is 11 o'clock here in Santa Barbara, California.
What's the weather like in California there?
It's really nice, actually. Pretty nice waves, and the sun's shining pretty well. Can't complain.
So do you ride those waves?
Yeah, I try to surf as much as I can. I actually live in San Diego, and when I'm not on the road, I try to surf in the morning and the evenings as frequently as possible.
Can I ask you, if your company has been providing very, very high technology radio communication equipment for more than 40 years, why did Datron decide to add drones, or the sUAVs, the small unmanned aerial vehicles, to your product line?
That's a very good question. It's a fairly long story, but the short and skinny of it is, of course, we focus on our customers, all of which are tactical in nature. And we came across this company up in Canada called Arion, and their system, their Scout at the time, is extremely rugged, and we got a demonstration of this Scout, and I found that we were basically proficient in flight of this thing within 10 minutes. I mean, it was just so easy to fly, and the wind was blowing pretty good, and the rain was coming down. So it kind of fit within our core focus of delivering products that they are rugged and reliable and easy to use.
Is your primary market the military sector?
It is, yeah. The system can be used by anybody, really. Any application from law enforcement to military. But Datron does focus very heavily on military customers.
You just mentioned law enforcement, public safety. How is it important for them?
What we're seeing right now, at least in the U.S., and I believe this is happening in Germany as well, is that law enforcement users are now defining their concept of operations, of how they can actually start to use these small unmanned systems in the law space sector. So think about basically a helicopter that can fit into a trunk and is used over and over again because it's a electric power. So it's quiet, it's cost-effective, and it can take high-resolution aerial photographs. So anytime that a law enforcement operator is spending a large amount of money to take aerial photographs from the sky, of course, with a manned helicopter, you can take that out and insert one of these unmanned systems and save a tremendous amount of money. So that would range from firefighting to search and rescue to traffic collisions, forensics, crowd control, pretty much any kind of application that it makes more sense financially to use one of these small unmanned aircraft systems. than it does to use a manned helicopter. That's how they're starting to use them.
You just mentioned search and rescue. Can you give me an application or a story where this Scout was used?
Yeah, search and rescue, we've had a handful of customers across North America, predominantly in Canada and the U.S., who have used it for search and rescue. One of the more prevalent applications would be missing persons. One of the payloads that we actually have on the Scout and its newer system, the Sky Ranger, is a thermal infrared camera. A lot of civil operators will actually use this to identify by taking images in thermal, picking up their heat signatures, and switching over to a daylight camera to actually collect, obviously, daylight imagery of what they're looking for. A little while ago, actually, there was a train derailment in Kentucky. This was a chemical train derailment where basically the train went off the tracks and spilled a whole bunch of toxic material all over the ground. The Scout was actually used to collect all of the aerial intelligence required to safely go into this area and clean it up accordingly. So what the actual Scout can do, it can actually take multiple images, and because they all use GPS data, the Scout can actually take those images and stitch them together into a mosaic tile, which an operator can then put together in a post-processing software and actually create a full-on new map just from the images on the Scout. So they can use this to clean up the train derailment, for example, and save a ton of money.
Most of these multicopters are fair weather friends, meaning they can fly only in good weather. What's the situation with your Scout?
You can pretty much fly in any weather. So when we train customers, for example, that training course is generally about 3 days, sometimes 4. And we will actually do demonstrations where we show up at a customer's location and give them about 30 minutes of instruction and literally hand off controls of the aircraft to them. And that could be anything from a beautiful Santa Barbara day, like I've got right now, or a stormy, windy, crazy day somewhere else. We've trained customers in about 1 hour, and we deployed the system in winds in excess of 85 kilometers per hour, in driving snow, driving rain, extreme temperatures in the Middle East desert, extreme cold in the Arctic Circle. This is all so easy that I could literally train you, Dan, in about 30 minutes, and you'd be ready to go flying in just about any weather. So that's really what cuts us aside from a lot of our competitors, is that, you know, when you use the analog joysticks, it becomes challenging to counteract any kind of wind. But because the Scout and the Sky Ranger are all software-driven, they can actually counteract that wind on their own. So what we say is we're basically telling the system where to go and what to look at. The system flies itself on its own.
It sounds pretty amazing.
It really is. It's one thing to figure and talk about it, but until you actually fly it for yourself, it's a different story. It's a pretty impressive piece of technology, no doubt.
As a closing note, what do you see for the future of your unmanned aerial vehicles?
There's a couple of things that I'd like to see. The most important, of course, is delivery of a robust aircraft. What everybody wants is more flight time, more power to be able to handle wind. But what I find most exciting in this industry is actually the payloads that you can attach to these aircraft. The technology of these payloads gets smaller and smaller and require less and less power. You can actually do more amazing things with them. What we can do these days with an uncooled thermal camera is remarkably impressive. We can offset the system by a couple hundred meters and still identify hot targets. Furthermore, we can use near-infrared for agriculture. The largest robotics industry group, the AUVSI group, is projecting huge growth for the unmanned systems technology in the agricultural sector using near-infrared. As the platforms themselves stabilize and evolve, I would actually argue that the payloads that you would attach to these aircraft are evolving even quicker.
Well, Chris, sounds like you've got an interesting hobby and an interesting job. I thank you very kindly for taking the time to speak with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
In the air, I've got Mr. Malik Al-Badri. He's the Chief Technology Officer and Managing Director for Copter Squad, located here in Munich. Hello, Malik. Are you in the air?
Hello, Dan. No, just sitting here.
How did Copter Squad get into the business of building multicopters?
Just 4 years ago, I was in Switzerland, holiday with the family, and I took a look up to the mountains and thought how nice it would be to have a flying camera and make pictures without going there. You see, I love the nature, but I was very lazy. So that was the beginning. It's just 4 years ago. I was always interested in aviation technology, and so I started studying the World Wide Web for all information and manufacturers of multicopters.
It was very interesting, so I started to build up my first copters, testing them and tuning them, and suddenly people came to me and asked me, hey, can you build me a multicopter? That was the beginning, and I didn't say no, and now we are building multicopters for professionals. The first month we worked in our garage and built up multicopters, and that was the first place we used to start the company.
Great. What types of products do you offer?
We offer a multicopter which is more for the pros. It's a foldable copter. It's very practical if you have to walk to some areas and take your multicopter with you, but it's very heavy lift copter, so you can lift up to 10 kilos. And it's also my main target to build copters who are reliable, because it's a very heavy and expensive, and it's a very dangerous machine. You see, the tip of a propeller runs with around about 750 miles per hour, and it's more like a knife. It's 1,000 knives in the air. And if this hurts somebody, you can imagine what will happen. So it's very interesting because you have the possibility to carry things like cameras into the air and make new perspectives for cinematographers or photographers. But on the other hand, it's a dangerous thing, and you have to keep these things very safe. Our copter's got 4 arms, and on each arm he uses 2 motors. We call it the X8 combination, and the X8 combination is very practical because you have only 4 arms, so you have 4 arms less weight. And even if you work with 8 propellers, you feel much more safer than you work with 6 or 4 propellers.
Yeah, you have a redundant system built in, so if one or more fails, the other ones can carry it.
That's right, yes.
Are your customers mainly from the Munich area?
The funny thing is, yes, we have some customers of television networks in Munich here, and even some private small film companies from Berlin and Cologne. But our main target group at this time are cinematographers in Europe. They use our technique, and this is a very nice combination because we always have to keep an eye on it, what the cinematographers want to have. And they don't want to have technique. They want to have somebody who's able to bring their camera to the point where they want to get the view. So our main customers are in Europe now, but we're starting getting inquiries from the US.
Nice. What do you think your secret for success has been?
Probably first it's our copter, because we didn't know at this time when we made the first promotion that it's available, that at this time there was no other competitor who was able to provide a copter with foldable arms and yet also the safe system we have with 8 propellers on 4 arms, and we started in a price class where there are not so many competitors.
Most of the multicopters have a flight time with a payload of a heavy camera of about maximum 15 minutes. How long can your machines fly?
With a payload of 8 kilograms, around about half an hour. And this is flight time. This is not a hover time, it is flight time. The flight time is a combination between hovering on one point, and half of the flight time is getting around and flying and increasing and decreasing the height. Reliable, 30 minutes, no problem.
So when you say hover, your multicopters, you start them up and then what? They hover in front of you? Do you have a fail-safe mode if a battery was to go down or something?
It's a law. You must have a fail-safe system. If
something happen with an engine or something like this, or the GPS, the global positioning system, will fail, then the system will talk to the brain of a multicopter and tell him, get a height of maybe 20 meters, wait, and nearly after 15 seconds, again, the copter will land automatically.
Great. Do you offer flight training courses?
Yes, we also offer, if we sell a ready-to-fly system, always to get 1 day flight lessons with us. We have a special airfield in the area of South Munich, and we are able to train them and to get them the most important features of the copter. These people are having a dangerous thing, and they want to earn money with it, and most of them never flew before. So flight lessons, yes, this is the Copter Squad offer.
Can you tell me, do you have any special plans for the future for your Copter Squad products?
You see, the market is growing up now because a lot of companies want to expand their possibilities. Will expand to the north of Germany and probably to the U.S.
Nice. The first man that walked on the moon was an American named Neil Armstrong. And he said, pilots take no special joy in walking. Pilots like to fly.
I build things and I sell things. I always want to fly by myself. If I keep on doing this job with the same energy, like I started 4 years ago, I think we will have a lot of nice pictures in the future from cameras flying with Copter Squad.
Malik, I thank you so kindly for taking the time to talk to us and our listeners. Keep those blades spinning.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping into the future. I wanna fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free.
From the beginning of time, man has been fascinated with a bird's eye point of view. Whether this vantage point was gained by climbing a tree, a tower, or a mountain, the effort always seemed worthwhile. Since man has yet to learn to fly on his own, perhaps sending a camera to the sky may just be the next best thing to being there.
'Cause I'm as free as a bird now, yeah. And this bird you cannot change. Oh, 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 oh. And this bird you cannot change. And the bird you'll never change. Lord knows I can change them.
One of the world's greatest artists, and he also was an incredible inventor, Leonardo da Vinci, dedicated time and energy to make a detailed study of the mechanics of bird flight, and in so doing generated my favorite quote on flight as follows: "Once you have tasted flight, you will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you will always long to return." I truly hope you have enjoyed today's segment. Remember, all technology has the potential to be used in a positive or negative manner. Personally, I like to accentuate the positive, and my hope remains that you, the listener, do too. On behalf of the folks here at Radio LORA, take a moment now and look to the sky.